Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, the air around you heavy and still, as though something unseen were watching? You lie there, perfectly safe, yet your mind thrashes, like an animal trapped in invisible light. You reach for your phone, the clock, anything that might explain this pulse of fear. But there is nothing, only the quiet hum of existence, and the sense that you have lost something essential, though you cannot recall what it is. Why does comfort breed such unease? Why do you, surrounded by abundance, still live as if being hunted? Perhaps anxiety is not the enemy, but a signal. But if it is warning you, what truth is it warning you of? Anxiety, at its core, is not only about danger. It is about disconnection from your own experience, from the present moment, from a deeper sense of meaning. Psychology shows that when the mind cannot tolerate uncertainty, it spins in anticipation, firing alarms even when no real threat is present. In philosophy, thinkers like Viktor Frankl suggested that when life is stripped of meaning, inattention fills the vacuum, demanding an answer. Buddhism points to a similar route. Craving and clinging to what is impermanent create a constant undercurrent of dissatisfaction, called dukkha. You feel this as the quiet sense that something is off, even when nothing is obviously wrong. Your culture tells you to solve it through more achievement, more control, more certainty. Yet, the more you chase, the more fragile you feel, because what you are defending is always changing. Day after day, this invisible current of unease shapes your choices. You scroll, refresh, and check, not because you genuinely care what appears next, but because the moment between updates feels unbearable. Neuroscience suggests that every time you seek reassurance or novelty, your brain delivers a brief hit of dopamine, a tiny reward that soothes anxiety for a moment before leaving you emptier than before. Soon, you are not just living your life, you are managing your anxiety about it. Entire systems profit from this restless state. Economies built on craving, technologies designed to keep you reaching, never resting. Spiritually, the cost is profound. You become a stranger to stillness, suspicious of silence, unable to meet yourself without a screen in the way. The trap is subtle. You keep moving to avoid discomfort, not realizing that the movement is what keeps discomfort alive. Something in you begins to realize that the real problem isn't a lack in your life, but a distortion in your perspective. Breaking free does not begin with one more technique to control your life. It begins with the courage to stop running. The Buddha's rebellion was to sit down under a tree and refuse to move until he saw clearly how the mind creates its own suffering. You mirror that rebellion in smaller ways, by feeling a wave of anxiety and choosing, just for a breath, not to escape it. Instead of reaching for your phone, you place a hand on your chest and notice the raw sensations, tightness, heat, trembling. Instead of believing every fearful thought, you watch it rise and fall like a passing cloud. This is not passivity. It is training in a new kind of strength, the strength to stay. Over time, simple practices like mindful breathing, observing thoughts, and gently relaxing the body in moments of tension begin to unwind the habit of automatic resistance. You start to learn in your own nervous system that anxiety is survivable, that it peaks and fades on its own when you do not feed it with more fear. There comes a moment when the chase begins to collapse, when not every question needs an immediate answer, and you glimpse what has been quietly present all along. The Buddha's radical answer to anxiety was not mere relief, but awakening to the nature of reality itself. Suffering, he taught, is not a flaw in existence. It is the mind's refusal to flow with impermanence. Everything changes. Sensations, moods, relationships, roles, even the sense of I, observing it all. The more tightly you cling, the more painful change becomes. But as you practice letting go, not as a slogan, but as a lived rhythm in your day, something shifts. You pause before reacting, breathe before speaking, feel a wave of fear without adding the story that you are broken. Mundane moments become training grounds. Standing in line, you notice impatience as a pattern in the mind. During an argument, you sense the hurt beneath the anger before it explodes. Your life does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes intelligible. Anxiety turns from an enemy into a messenger, revealing where you are still grasping at what cannot be held. Then the deeper realization emerges. What you called your anxiety was never purely personal. It was the friction between a small, frightened self and a reality that refuses to be controlled. Behind all striving, an immense stillness waits, not the absence of movement, but the spaciousness in which movement happens. The boundary between you and life softens. You are not standing outside experience, trying to manage it. You are woven into it, breath by breath. This is the great inversion. Freedom is not achieved through tightening your grip, but through relaxing it. To awaken is to see that nothing essential was ever missing. Not love, not peace, not meaning, only your willingness to meet life as it is. The prison door, you discover, was never locked. You are holding it closed with your own fear of feeling, your fear of change, your fear of being no one and nothing for a moment. Now you have another option. In the next anxious surge, instead of fleeing, you can notice, soften, breathe. Let the wave rise, crest, and fall in the vastness of awareness that holds it. And in that simple, radical act, you begin to taste the freedom the Buddha pointed to. Not a life without anxiety, but a life no longer ruled by it.